What's the founding story of Laser Focus Solutions? Because you've got a really cool background. I know your background, but like, give me the TLDR. What got you to actually take that final leap and start your own handyman business?
I always found myself just, offering up to borrow that tool, and then I'd have to show them how to use the tool or whatever. And it just got around like, hey, call Chris. So I have ADHD, a very high level. There's an H in there, so that's hyper-focused. And that's where the Laser Focus Solutions name came from, was because I'm very driven.
Talk to me a little bit about, if you had to rate yourself between 1 and 10 in terms of tech savviness. 1 being like my in-laws who need me to, turn on the TV because it's black. Why isn't it turning on? And 10 being like some genius sitting over at OpenAI right now. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I mean, I have moments where I feel like I'm a 4 to 6, but then I have moments where I feel like I'm like your in-laws. You know what I mean? Because there's just so much stuff coming out so fast. Like ChatGPT, for example. That tool, and here again, just the way you speak and you share a lot, you give a lot, right, of your time on social media. So when you share things like, talk to AI like it's a normal person, almost like give it a promotion or something like, you were doing at one of the Austin events or whatever, you were doing a little demo and messing around with AI. And it made me realize that I'm not the greatest at communication like I thought I was.
Welcome to the Superpro podcast, where we hear the founding stories of key strategies for success of the most amazing home service companies from the company founders themselves, like Chris. We're going to talk to them in a second. I'm Roland Ligtenberg. I'm your host, and I'm also the co-founder of Housecall Pro. I'm on the same mission I've been on for the last 13 years to champion the pro in everything that I do. Today, I'm really excited. We have Christopher Godwin, I'm going to call him Chris, the owner and founder of Laser Focus Solutions. They're a handyman-based business out of Middleton, Delaware, which is right in between Baltimore and Philly. Chris is shooting for $200K this year with 2 employees, 1 truck. Chris, thank you for joining us today and coming on the show.
Yeah, man, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah. So, okay, what's the founding story of Laser Focus Solutions? Because you've got a really cool background. I know your background, but like, give me the TLDR. What got you to actually take that final leap and start your own handyman business?
Yeah, I mean, I think what really resonated for me is I'm a high school dropout. I had a daughter when I was 16 years old, bought my first house when I was 18, and really just didn't have the funds to call somebody in to come do repairs on my house, right? So, and while raising kids and, you're juggling the youngsters right now and in your journey right now. So, and then you get it, lack of sleep, lack of just all of the things, you find ways to squeeze things in to do the repairs around the house. I went into corporate America, did the whole, that scene for 15, 20 years plus. And I just feel like in my community, and what I noticed was a lot of the younger generation and don't have tools, don't have time, right? So really that's what it comes down to. And I always found myself just, offering up to borrow that tool, and then I'd have to show them how to use the tool or whatever. And it just got around like, hey, call Chris. So I have ADHD, a very high level. There's an H in there, so that's hyper-focused. And that's where the Laser Focus Solutions name came from, was because I'm very driven. As I said, I was a high school dropout. I should not have been in senior leadership roles in corporate, all of the things, but just through grit, determination and such. When I left corporate, that's when the journey started with the handyman space. So yeah, it's been a fun journey, just being a part of the community, leaning in, driving by. My dad was a truck driver. Family members were always in some kind of service space. And they used to always say, hey, I delivered cars there. Or, hey, I delivered stone there or whatever. I find myself doing the same thing. Like, hey, I fixed the mailbox of that house, or hey, I painted that house, or hey, I did X, Y, Z. So it's just been a really full circle kind of thing for me. Entrepreneurship has been, it's had its ups and downs. I'll give it that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, business is never necessarily like linear, a straight line. And so there's lots of them now. It's just like entrepreneurship. What's maybe like a challenge you really faced early on that you feel like you overcame, and you've got some tips or learnings from that you could accelerate for some other people that are listening?
Oof. Well, I feel like the lack of hair tells a story in itself. You know what I mean? It's like you can take on some stress, but no, all jokes aside, I met you very early. In fact, my first job I booked, I got on referred by my cousin who uses Housecall Pro, and signed right up. And my first ticket was ran through Housecall Pro. And so that was my first exciting moment, right? But what I've learned is that I can't do everything. You know what I mean? And that's where I think, if you look at 2024's numbers, when I first met you and at the Conquer event, Summit event, you had made a comment around like get off the truck and delegate and put systems in place and simplify and niche down and, all those things. And, I took a lot of those lessons to heart because while I was scaling, I was also burning out very fast. So I think that you have to realize and recognize that, you can only carry the business so far by yourself. You have to get people around you. And then mentors like you, even Roland, like I said, you and I have talked many times and you've dropped little nuggets, of wisdom and just shared tips, tricks, resources and such. So for me, I think the biggest tip I've gotten for myself is, that saying they say, work on the business, not in the business. I didn't quite translate back then because it was like, well, how am I going to make all this, but I really created a job back then, right? I mean, I did $250,000 in 2024. That's great. And you saw, like you said, I mean, I'm looking to do 200 this year. Tommy Mello and a few other leaders say revenues for sanity and, revenues for vanity and profits for sanity, right? And I'm actually making more profit in this model than I was before doing it the other way, if that makes sense. So that's, for me, it's just know your numbers, a lot of lessons learned, like I said, since I started in 2022. I'm a totally different business owner than I was back then.
Yeah. And I think the way you put it is really good, which is, top line growth isn't the measurement just of success. Growing top line, you could do it at the expense of profit or even no profit or negative profit.
Sure.
And post big numbers. But the reality is how much work are you putting in for the amount of profit you're taking home? And then ultimately, like how repeatable and scalable is that? Because if it's not repeatable and scalable, you're going to cap yourself. There's going to be and then ultimately, you've got to find someone else able to do the job that you're currently doing so you can go work on bigger, better things that add even more value to the business. So speaking of that, you are growing, you're figuring out how to trim your profit to nice levels. What are some things that you're doing here in 26 that you think others should be looking at?
Well, as I said, I mean, I was the guy who was answering the phones, doing the Facebook posts, and again, ADHD, right? So there's 3 other letters besides H in that scenario. So I'm a squirrel as well. In fact, my nickname is Squirrel. So, I am not consistent with the things that you need to. And when it comes to algorithms and SEO and all those things, they feed off of consistency, right? So I was almost doing myself a disservice by going out and working that 13, 14-hour day, coming home and going, I'll post tomorrow or I'll post the next day, right? And so just delegating out some of those lower hanging fruit tasks, understanding that, I actually shifted. As I said, I was doing handyman work and I found myself saying yes to too much, even bigger tasks, smaller tasks. One day I'm doing this, next day I'm doing that. I would need a 53-foot trailer to pull up in front of your house if I was going to do all of the things, right? So, and that's where I realized it's not scalable. I can't get down on my hands and knees and do LVP flooring today and paint tomorrow. So in fact, in 2026, what I've decided to do is really niche. I'm leaning in painting first, and then I'm doing home repair secondary. So we're leaning in hard and heavy in the community with painting first, repaints, fresh ups, that kind of stuff. Yep. And then from there, it's like, well, hey, do you mind rehanging my picture when you're done? Or can you come in here and do this and that? Also service plans, right? We haven't found a lot of success with them, but it's harder to make them stick from a handyman perspective because people don't want to pay up front for it. But we're playing with those plans to where they're fitting in the certain communities, that we're seeing value, right? And I think that's the biggest thing is that you got to A/B test, right? And I think that you have to also, Alex Hormozy says, the main thing must be the main thing. You know what I mean? So you got to know what the main thing is. So for me, like I said, working with paint, I feel a lot more confident now having a labor force that I can pull in. I can sub out, and sub in, should I say. And, they're trusted, they want to work with me as well. And I have a remote assistant that does a lot of that stuff behind the scenes, right? From answering calls, Facebook posts, all that stuff. So SEO wise, in 2022, for example, I was spending a lot on Facebook ads, Google LSA, all of the things to get to that 251. I couldn't look back and tell you, Roland, honestly, where my throughput was coming from. I just knew I was throwing money against the wall, and if some of it stuck, I looked at it as a success, but I was no way to measure, right? And so now I don't do any ad spend. My phone still rings, and I'm organically on the map pack rated number one right now in my space because I have somebody that's utilizing all the backlinks of SEO and all the things that, quite honestly, I don't even know. You know what I mean? Like what I don't, so, and that's the beauty of it too, is that you have to trust and verify,
Mm. That's definitely a good nugget. Trust and verify. I say that to myself all the time. I think the other thing too, which is, if you're spending money, you're not tracking it. I would just advise you not to spend any money because then you don't know which money actually is working for you. So, I go back to look, use something simple like call tracking. If you're going to do that, use dynamic numbers so you can figure out what's actually turning what into real dollars. Clearly in the last couple of years, you've built out a portfolio of happy clients plus reviews plus referrals, which lets you even get to the place where you don't have to do anything and you're still getting calls, you're still getting books, which I think is a part of building that cycle, building that framework that'll help that organic growth. You mentioned Map Pack. A lot of people are like, what the hell is Map Pack? You got to have good reviews in an area near you so that when someone's searching painting near me, handyman near me, whatever it happens to be, that you surface in that nice little 3-pack, 4-pack, depending on if there's a sponsored one or not. But that's where you want to be. That's where you're not paying to be there. You're earning it via your reputation.
Well, I think that, again, you go back to when I first started the business, to your point, I could tell some of the leads I was getting, I just couldn't tell to the granular every dollar, right? And my thinking was, okay, well, if I'm getting 10 from LSA, let me double down and I'll get 20. And it doesn't always mean that. You're playing with the algorithm. You're playing with a lot of variables that you're not in control of. Whereas if you focus on going deeper into your customer space, and what communities are you serving well? How can you go deeper in that community and do more with neighbors inside that community? There's just a lot of things I learned to do it differently. And the fact that I'm not as, I feel like I'm wrong. I feel like things are in slower motion now, if that makes any sense. Like everything was coming at me so fast. And I felt like I needed to say yes to every job. I felt like I needed to say yes to just anything and everything I can get my hands on. Now it's like, just hold up, and to your point, 75 reviews. There's 2 other people in the Map Pack 3 that have 175 reviews, and I'm still ranking above them. And it really shouldn't be that way. But it is because of, again, it's how we're showing up in Google, My Business, and how we're showing up in our website, blogs and posts and all of those things. And really, it's a testament to what you've built, man. I got to be honest. I honestly left corporate America thinking, hey, I could start a business and I could run one. Well, I've learned that businesses come with a full infrastructure set in place, and you just have to move the widgets and do the thing, right? When you own your own business, it's a lonely world. You know what I'm saying? So getting into Housecall Pro was, in my opinion, is the reason why I'm even still in business. A lot of businesses don't make it past 3 to 5 years, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that I'm still in business is because I've met great mentors. I've met great owners. I've met great coaches, great people, that have taught me and shown me, right? And just said, no, man, you need to stop going for the shiny object all the time. And you're one of them. You said, Chris, you don't need this. You don't need this thing, this extra $49 thing that you want, this widget. Just do this, man. Just ground and pound. Yard signs, door hangers, 5 rounds. Work your community. Just be authentic, and deliver on what you say you're going to deliver on, and let the rest happen. Right. I think also in the handyman space, in the beginning, I was saying yes to so many things. And just, again, full transparency. It felt good, but then when I ran into somebody that did flooring, and I'm like, hey, you do flooring? Why don't I give you some flooring jobs? And do you ever get any drywall? You ever put any holes in walls or have anything? You can feed me this and I'll feed you that. That's actually what fed my business, is not being so damn selfish with everything, trying to do all of the things. And now I have a network. I have a garage door guy, right? He gets called all the time for doors. He's like, no, I'm a garage door company. Well, now I can say, I got a guy. You know what I mean? Yep. And whenever I got a garage door thing going on, while I could probably figure it out and fix it and do it, he's way more efficient. He's my guy. I hand it over to him. So networking is also huge. B&I, same thing. That's something you told me to get into a while ago, right? Mm-hmm. And just having that giving mindset. A lot of owners, there's a lot of things out there, and people want to give you the access and give you the keys to all of the things. But again, you got to be honest and authentic and real and genuine with what you're delivering,
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's so many good gold nuggets that you kind of dropped in there, but I think if you can't specialize and you want to do all the things, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should be doing it. And I think it takes a little bit of not necessarily humble pie, but also just like some common sense to realize that there's things that you are better in by like a magnitude than someone else. If you could do more of that and less of the other things you're not that good at, you're going to be making a lot more profit, and you're going to be building those reciprocal relationships, which you've done really well in, which is where other people will be like, oh yeah, I got the guy that can fix that wall for you. Or your kid punched a hole in the drywall. Boom, we can get that fixed for you. And then they're going to pass that off back to you. And that's kind of the concept behind B&I, even though there's some kitsiness to it and, the rules and the things, and it's all kind of funny, but the basic premise of it is solid, which is like, hey, can you build a network of people that refer jobs to one another that you trust? Because when you refer one of your customers somewhere else, you better believe it's going to reflect on you, and you want it to reflect well. And if it reflects well, it's going to help them when they refer business back to you. When it comes to if you're getting multiple bids in, I'm always going to go with a referral versus some rando, I happen to find with plumber near me, even if they have great reviews. If my neighbor says so, or someone else that did good work for me, you better believe I'm going to trust their opinion, right? Because their reputation is on the line as well. So I think there's so many good golden nuggets in what you just shared. Talk to me a little bit about, if you had to rate yourself between 1 and 10 in terms of tech savviness, 1 being like my in-laws who need me to, turn on the TV because it's black. Why isn't it turning on? And 10 being like some genius sitting over at OpenAI right now. Where do you fall on that spectrum?
I mean, I have moments where I feel like I'm a 4 to 6, but then I have moments where I feel like I'm like your in-laws. You know what I mean? Because there's just so much stuff coming out so fast. Like ChatGPT, for example, that tool, and here again, just the way you speak and you share a lot, you give a lot, right, of your time on social media. So when you share things like talk to AI like it's a normal person, almost like give it a promotion or something like, you were doing at one of the Austin events or whatever, you were doing a little demo and messing around with AI. Mm-hmm. And it made me realize that I'm not the greatest at communication like I thought I was. I'm a great talker, but how I say and how I speak delivers differently, right? So ChatGPT, if you say, hey, build me a yard sign that says da 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 da, and then you're getting mad at it because it's drifting and it's going crazy and it's going sideways, and it's because you didn't tell it the framework and really where to start and where to end and everything else. So I'd say, like I said, I'm a 4 to 6 in some cases, but dude, I'm learning so much having my remote assistant, with Zapier's and with Zaps and all those integration type things. I didn't know a lot of that stuff, man. So a lot of things that were manual, she's like, oh, we can build a Zap for that. And I'm like, whoa, slow down.
All right.
So and I think that's where if you don't know it, you think you're smarter than you are. But then it's like my iPhone. I think I'm pretty savvy with this thing, but then my teenage kid, my 20-year-old kid gets a hold of this thing and he's like, Dad, you're doing it wrong. You know what I mean? So,
I think it's important to realize, where you're good or you're not, but I think just being a lifelong learner is an important part of this whole message and this whole journey, which is like, there's always going to be someone else that knows better than you in a certain thing. And if you can learn a thing here and too, then that's going to help you in your business. Where I was going with this is like, somewhere along the way, you made a decision to use Housecall Pro. What was kind of the catalyst for that? And being a self-described 4 to 6, did you feel like it seemed hard? Did you feel like it seemed easy? Did you feel like it seemed kind of what you thought? Like walk someone else through that maybe hasn't tried Housecall Pro yet, or, kind of rank some more similarly where you rank yourself too.
No, I love this story because I got a good one to that. So when I was in senior leadership in corporate America, the iPhones were coming out around 08, 09, something like that, or whatever it was. And so I was leading, field employees that were sprinkler fitters on one side and alarm technicians on another side. And then corporate mailed us 65 iPhones to drop off. And on top of that, we were actually downloading our own software. We were integrating similar to Housecall Pro. It was going to provide our commercial customers that on my way, I'm on site, I'm done feature. It was very, very wonky because tech wasn't quite there yet, but I got to give them credit for trying it, right? So when I got into the home service space, I noticed that it always seemed to be somebody just showing up at my door and ringing my doorbell. Or I always get that window of like Comcast or whoever it's going to be, it's going to come out. It's like, we'll be out between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. I'm like, thanks for the tip. You know what I mean? So when I saw this feature coming out in the commercial space and it wasn't in the residential space, that's when I was like, man, it would be so cool if I could set myself apart and show up like $1 million company, you know, and different from a chuck in a truck, you know what I mean? And different from some guy just showing up with, you know, not wearing a uniform and not presenting myself well. And what I liked most about just Housecall Pro was when my cousin showed it to me, you know, he was like, dude, check this out. He was like, my estimate templates are all the same. And I think back at days when I was in corporate, we had Word docs. You know how many versions we had of the change? And it's like, are you using version 2.6.7.5? Well, that's the old one. Don't use that one. The terms and conditions are wrong. You know what I mean?
Yeah, so version final, super final. And you're like, was that really the final one or not? Yeah.
So I say all that to say that when I dropped these spaceships off on the conference room table, all the fitters that were like, what is this thing? It doesn't have buttons. It doesn't flip. How do I use it? In time, these guys all came around very quickly and caught on to the technology of hitting the button on my way and such. And I really was impressed with Housecall Pro and the fact that a lot of the clunkiness that we had back then, you guys had automations. Like, I mean, dude, I'm serious. I was on a ladder one day and I first started the business and I was painting, was cutting in, and my phone vibrated and it said, yeah, thanks for reaching out. I do want to move forward, but I'm just in the middle of doing something around my house. I'll get back to you. And I looked at it and I was like, I don't remember sending that guy any messages, but okay, maybe I did it. Squirrel moment. So I put it back in my pocket, kept on going. 10 minutes later, it vibrated again. I'm looking at it again. Roland, I had no idea what the heck was going on until somebody said, oh, that's the pipeline feature you have, and that's the automated follow-ups. When you send an estimate out, it automatically sends a follow-up to the clients, and they love it, right? Mm-hmm. So that to me is a differentiator. You know, I got one for you. It's pretty cool. So I use subcontractors on my painting side, and my remote assistant Carla, she says to me, she goes, Chris, how come in Housecall Pro, whenever you go out and do a job or whenever your guy goes out and does a job with you, you guys always seem to get 5-star reviews. We always get paid right away. You guys always seem to have clean books. But then there's always these open jobs in Housecall Pro that I never know anything about them. It's like you have this secret knowledge up here, this tribal knowledge about them. And I was like, all right, I'll share. I was like, so that's because I use subs and they don't have access to Housecall Pro. And so I have to go in and I have to manually invoice them out. And she goes, yeah, but I feel like we're missing something because we're not getting 5-star reviews. Like, how do I know it's paid? How do I know it's not paid? It's messing up QuickBooks for reconciliation side of things. She goes, do you mind if I make an SOP and have the subs text me when they're on their way, when they're there, and when they leave? And I'll go in on the desktop version and I'll hit the button and I'll delight the customers with the on my way and the on site and the depart text. Roland, I can't make this up. Nothing makes me more proud than being somewhere else and getting a 5-star review or getting a text message that I got paid on a job that I didn't have to. Because in the old days, I was on my phone at like 9, 10 o'clock at night trying to clean these things up. Like, oh, that one's done. This one's done. Wait, he needs to go back tomorrow. Because I didn't want to trust her to do it because I thought it was too messy because they didn't have access to it. And just by talking it through, she came up with that idea of just, hey, why have access to Housecall Pro? I'm in the dashboard all day long anyway. Why don't I hit the button? So we changed the notification. Instead of saying the tech's name, it just says Laser Focus Solutions Tech is on his way. He'll be there in 5-10 minutes. Yep. You know what I mean? And it just pushes.
Yeah. And what's neat about that too is like, you know, you're able to still use either the basic or essentials kind of plan without having to, you know, buy a bunch of extra seats for a bunch of subs that only use it every once in a while.
And that was my thing.
Yeah. And so then, but the VA found a great workaround to still deliver that delight. I like the words that you used, which is absolutely those features, which is, you know, delivering the delight, to give that customer experience, to get those 5-star reviews, but also collect the payment, which is nice. And, you know, you don't have to be up that late, definitely helps. And I think the combination of that pipeline tool that you mentioned, which is like automatically following up estimates that you even forgot about, and people are saying, yes, get me in the books, I want it, I accept it, you know, because I think for a lot of owners, and not just owners that are out in the field as well, but, you know, larger companies, they give out multiple estimates a day. And imagine how that stacks up if you do a month. What are you going to do? Or how are you going to remember to follow up once a week with each estimate, and then on day 15 and day 30 for each estimate here for the entire year if you do 2 or 3 estimates a year? You can't. It's not humanly possible, And so simple automations like this, even without AI, is going to save your butt, and it's going to make you revenue.
Yeah, it's really simplified a lot of things, just standardized. Again, I didn't even know what SOP stood for, right? Standard operating procedures, and that's something that every business, everything was up here. And when I got my VA, Loom, I didn't even know what Loom or Scribe or any of these softwares were. So when you ask me the question, how tech savvy do I feel 4 to 6, but I know there's owners out there that are more like, I'm a tech mind. I've become an office mind. So if I had to say, if I'm 4 to 6, I'm leaning more towards the 4 because I'm tech tool first, right? So I'm trying to keep up, and I feel like, just learning these tools like Loom, for example, man, how cool is it? You can go on and just screens capture while you're doing the thing anyway. Hey, Carla, tomorrow, this is how I want you to manage my email from now on. You see this inbox over here? It's messy. It's got 875 unread emails. I want you to put over the folder, actually that was funny too. So she messaged me. She goes, well, can I unsubscribe to these? And I went, what's unsubscribe? She's like, like you signed up to half this stuff. You probably don't know what it is. Can I unsubscribe? And I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. I didn't know why we asked her what unsubscribe means, but it's when you're out there in the world, that's the last thing I'm worried about is cleaning up 875 personal emails. Like I want to filter through and get to the realness of it. And then the rest is trash to me. I go in every day now. I got 6 emails tops, and I know what I need to do with them. You know what I mean? So it's just clearing your mind, setting expectations, and really following things through,
I think those are great tips. Tell me, what do you think is the most underrated Housecall Pro feature that you don't think either we talk enough about, or because it's not an add-on, we don't actually sell, but that you think other pros should know about if they're an existing Housecall Pro user or even a new Housecall Pro user or potential Housecall Pro user? What's underrated?
Well, I don't know about underrated, but I mean, pipeline to me is underrated, but I feel like you guys just, from what I understand, you guys have the beta now with the automations that are coming out, which is going to check a lot of boxes for people that are looking out for that. Cause I mean, I think if I remember right, I told you that I was debating on getting another software to do more of the CRM, sales type stuff.
The front of the house. Yep.
Right. Yeah. But I feel like pipeline, in my opinion, there was a time when I scaled back my business. It was going through a restructuring, and I cut that feature off thinking, oh, I don't need it. I was only doing a couple jobs a week. I was doing other things in my life, other focus areas. And when I lost it, it was almost like, wow, I'm pretty blind. It just feels clunky. It wasn't easy to navigate. Like, how cool is it? You could actually click on it. And then you guys put the mobile upgrade on it too, which I don't know if a lot of pros know it's there, but it is. And it's pretty user friendly, So the fact that you can actually go in there and you can set up and click and drag and move and shake and shuffle. I feel like that's probably the biggest feature that's been my success. As I said, just the automations, because to your point, I was the one that was coming in going, it's Friday. Did I follow up with Tom with that job? Did I follow up with this guy with that job? Did I do this? Did I do that? And instead I'm getting notifications going, hey man, I appreciate you keeping on top of things. That was really cool. You sent me that reminder. And I'm like, yeah, let me get this dirt off my shoulder. You're darn right I sent that reminder. You know what I mean? It's just set it and forget it,
Yeah, set it and forget it. I like the way that you describe it, but also more importantly, I think that, as we think about more and more automation, more and more AI, there's just a whole bunch of things that are taking probably space in your mind that you can now not worry about. So you can focus your mind and attention somewhere else. I think the more that we can do that, so you can focus on the things that matter, which is the customer relationship, in person, doing the job versus the like, oh my gosh, did I remember estimate 1457 30 days ago? I don't even remember that. You know what I mean? So those are things
I do got one for you. I do got one for you as far as underrated tags. I feel like
what do you use tags for?
I didn't in the beginning. And then when you end up with a ton of customers in your database, and then you want to market, that certain area, that certain demographic or whatever, it's like, good luck, So I love the fact that now I can go in and I do 55 plus. I also do busy. So my avatar is 55 plus. The ones that have the tools have the skills and the knowledge, but they just are at that age where they can't quite lift their hands above their shoulder to do the thing. And they're embarrassed to call me sometimes, but they do to do the thing. The other one is the busy families, right? I think you fall in that as well, where it's like you'd rather just pay somebody to come out and do the thing. I got a buddy of mine that's got a shed full of tools. He's like, Chris, I have to fight 3 toddlers to get to the shed. One's hanging on my foot. The other one's, kicking and screaming and breaking a toy or something else. And then by the time I get the tool out, now it's a huge safety hazard because they all want to plug it in, unplug it, put their hand under the saw, whatever. He's like, this is a mess. So, that's my avatar as well. It's just that busy family, right? So what I've done is I've went in and tagged my neighborhoods. That's what I told you. Knowing the communities that you're hitting. I had no idea that I was doing as strong as I was in one particular community until I added a tag with each neighborhood name in it. Mm-hmm. And then I just put in a little marketing splash. And I was like, holy cow, I've done 37 houses in this community. Like, that's a lot. It's a big community, 600 homes in a community, but still 37 is quite a bit over the 3 years of being in business. And I honestly didn't even track it like that. But having those tags, it allows me to really pull it in. So, right before the holidays, we sent out we tagged, filtered down 55 plus, and we sent out a, hey, if you need something done before the holidays or whatever, give us a call. We're here to help, whatever. And then we just did one for the busy families. In fact, we're doing it right now, actually. Hey, with the snowstorm that came around, I'm sure you got a lot of holes in your walls and crowns all over the place, being colored all over the walls, everything else. Give us a call. We'll freshen up your walls, when the storm breaks, when the snow melts or whatever, So
that's awesome. That's
just
clever.
Being able to identify and quick target, right?
Yeah, I love that you mentioned it. Tags, I think, are underutilized. And when people go like, oh, the reporting is tough. And then it's like, yeah, there's probably some things we can make even better. But if you're not tagging things correctly, if you're not having good data in, you're not going to get good data out. And like you mentioned, you went back through and you re-tag stuff. You learn these extra insights, and now that's helping you grow your business. Okay, we hit the 30-minute mark super easy between me and just chatting. Let's go back down to the end section here. If you had to tell yourself 10 years ago some piece of advice, what would it be? Baby Chris. Maybe not baby Chris, but younger Chris.
No. Little 5 pound, 3 ounce baby Chris. No.
Yeah.
So I definitely feel like having the mentors around me, the right people in my circle, right, has been huge. I also feel like just settling in, believing in what you have going on in your life, and just see, I'm the kind of person where if I don't get enough results fast enough, I want to move on. And Carla, my VA, actually said to me one day when I asked her if we should shift and change something with an ad or something we were doing. And she said, I don't think we have enough, proof of concept quite yet, right? It hasn't been out there to get a good test sample. And that was meaningful to me to hear her say, because sometimes as an owner and as a leader, I take it on that I'm failing and I want to quickly, take the ball and shift and jug left instead of right. When the playbook says, take 4 steps and go right. That's the playbook. That's what you should be doing, right? But it's, for some reason, I'm just like fighting it and I want to go to the left. And it's nice to have people, even, like I said, even my VA, Carla, the fact that she could say to me, hey, Chris, I respect what you're saying, but we really don't have enough sample size to change and pivot yet. And I was like, fair, let's pause, right? And it's kind of like that 3 feet from gold, saying, I don't know the exact story, but there was brothers or somebody that had, and they were mining a gold mine, and they gave up, right? And somebody came in and bought it for pennies on the dollar and literally struck gold 3 feet later, and, boom, right? So that for me is like, just settle in, and just see things through sometimes. That's what I would give myself advice about.
See things through. I love it. That's amazing advice. Chris, thank you so much for joining us on the Superpro podcast. There were so many good golden nuggets throughout the entirety of this podcast. If people want to reach out to you, or if they have questions about VAs or how you use your VAs, you could probably reach Chris at hello@laserfocussolutions.com, or reach out to him on Facebook, super active in the Housecall Pro community for sure. He's got a lot of experience there, so please feel free to reach out to Chris. And for anyone else happens to be listening, if you are not using Housecall Pro, or you are, and if you've got a question, you can always reach out to me directly at 858-215-1512. People will say I'm crazy for putting my phone number out there, but I do answer it. If you call me, it's a little tough, but if you text me, I can definitely get back to you a little quicker because I'm usually in meetings most of the day, but I would love to help you and at least get you to the person on our team here that can. Once again, thank you so much, Chris, for joining, and tune in next week for another special edition of the Superpro podcast. Thank you, Chris.
Appreciate you, man.
The Superpro podcast is brought to you by Housecall Pro, the leading platform for the home service industry. Housecall Pro streamlines your workflows and simplifies everything from scheduling and dispatching to communication and billing. Unlock the full potential of your home service business with Housecall Pro. Work smarter and more efficiently with streamlined workflows and detailed analytics. Win more business and serve your customers well, every single time. Join more than 40,000 home service pros who have already revolutionized their businesses. Work smarter with streamlined workflows, get organized with centralized information, and scale your business your way. Learn more at housecallpro.com.